We should now be live. All right, let me share. Okay. Sharing the link to our Discord to get everyone on board. Nice. Okay. All right, let me double check that everything is working fine. Welcome to the stream. We are okay. Nice. We're live. Hey, so welcome to the stream. We are going to try some new stuff. Always, I'm always here trying to improve the streams that we make. And yeah, so I'm going to try a couple new things. Basically, listening to the feedback that we got over the last couple of streams. We've already changed the time that we do the streams. The dates, well, unfortunately, apparently, I got the news that today is Thanksgiving or something like that. So happy Thanksgiving, but I understand that many people might not be able to join this thing live. But I suppose it is what it is. There were people that were complaining about issues with the audio quality, issues with the video quality. An issue with like the images moving around. Fortunately slash unfortunately, about a month ago or something like that, my computer kind of like broke down. So I got a new computer that is a bit newer, a bit more powerful. And I've done a couple of tests with the stream, and hopefully now the quality should be better. Yeah, the quality should be better, everything should be better. But I'm also doing something else, which is that now I'm going to. I spent some time preparing a presentation, essentially a presentation format for the stream, which means that now the presentation is feeding straight into the software, so you should be able to see all the images in high quality. Instead of when I was streaming my screen and when whatever. Now the images should be fed directly high quality to you. On top of that, I was doing a couple of tests before this, and I figured out that with this new computer, hopefully, I can actually now stream the 3D software and show you the models in 3D. So, I'm going to do a little poll. All right. Which models do you want at the end? Okay, and basically the idea is I'm going to give you a couple of options of various 3D models that we have coming up for December. And yeah, I'm thinking that basically at the end of the stream, we can have this poll running throughout the stream, and then at the end of the stream, people can vote. Well, people can vote throughout the stream, and then at the end of the stream, I can actually showcase some models in 3D. So I'm going to give you a couple of options. Unfortunately, we don't have Battle Sister models ready to showcase them in 3D. But I can only add 4 options. Ugh, that is not great. Hmm. Okay, let me combine some. But yes, so maybe it's also a little bit of like an incentive to stick around until the end, because you're going to actually see some new stuff. So let me see. What can I show you? These. And let me choose some cool models that we can show you. And Well, uh, okay. Uh, cool. All right. The poll should be up. Um, cool. So now you guys can start voting on the poll. All right, and yeah, another thing that I want to try is so I did post a link with um, mm, mm, I posted like a thing where people can ask questions before a stream, and we're also going to have a Q&A at the end of the stream. But also, I'm going to try to pay a little bit of attention to the chat and answer questions from the stream as we go through the various sections. Um, and yeah, so yeah, all right, we actually have like quite a few people joining. That is cool. I already see that there's a question. Will the Battle Brothers ever appear in Miami Factory? So I assume you're talking about our old Battle Brother models. Those were removed and they are not going to come back. So they're not going to be posted. If you're talking about like new models, yeah, there's no plans for that. There's nothing like that. Any news for Cell Swords? Well, stick around because there is. All right, so let's start the presentation. This is a new computer, new setup, different things. So I might, have a couple of hiccups, but this should be cool. All right, so starting off with the first thing. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to do a little community highlight. So it's amazing that apparently there's a team of players in Poland that have been running OPR games that have been going from convention to convention in Poland and showing off our games. They posted a couple of pictures on our Discord. I wanted to highlight these. This is really cool. As you can see, they're actually using like they have like pre-made armies. They have like these big banners that they made and they are yeah they're basically setting everything up to do like demo games. um yeah, and people actually have been showing up and going there, and they say it's been super successful. They even printed out some t-shirts. This was not in any way this was approved by us, but it was in no way like organized or sponsored by us or anything. It was just like people doing cool stuff. Yeah, I thought it was awesome to see. So I suppose if you're in Poland, try to reach out to. I think his name is Rafal, on the Discord. Um, yeah, and see if they're gonna be at a convention near you. Yeah, if you want to showcase OPR games at a convention or at a game store or at whatever a club near you, and you need help, you need assets, you want logos or you want illustrations or you need cover art or anything that we can do really to help you, feel free to reach out. You can always send me an email, so info@onepagerules.com. Yeah, and then um, you can set up your own events and stuff. This also kind of ties in with the volunteer program that we want to kind of launch in the future. Probably this is only going to be something for next year. But yes, we basically want to keep helping. Um, we want to keep help you reach more players so that you can create your own local communities and find cool people to play with. Um, yeah, and have fun with OPR games. Okay, that was the people from Poland. All right, now some cool news from Dragon Trappers Lodge. So, if you don't know them, Dragon Trappers Lodge are another Patreon. I think they also have a Tribes that does 3D printed miniatures, and we are actually partnering up with them, and we're helping them make army lists for their next faction that's coming out in December. And so yeah, it's really cool because this is something that we have been kind of like planning for a while, to give other creators access to our tools so that they can help promote their models for OPR. And yeah, and they're doing that. So they are starting with a dragon army. The army is designed to be both for fantasy and sci-fi. So you're gonna get an Age of Fantasy army list, and you're going to get a Grimdark Future army list. And they have these really cool sort of like Dragonborn models. You have these sort of like knights with swords. You have some bigger, like some bigger monsters with cannons. You have kobolds in there. You have models with, of course, with guns as well for sci-fi. Yeah, we're really excited to partner up with them, and hopefully they're going to be making more. If this goes well for them, of course, they're going to be making more army lists compatible with OPR and their models for the future. Yeah, very cool. Very exciting to actually finally see this thing come to life. And we've been talking to more creators as well, and we're trying to set up a sort of like compatibility program where creators can basically like showcase how to use their models in our games, and basically help them reach a bigger audience, and help you guys also be able to cross play between different prints from different creators, without having to make up your own army lists and stuff like that. Like, I think for me, the a future where any creator can just make models and make an army list, and you can pick it up and then play with anybody else sounds incredible to me, because um, I mean, we don't really have that right now, right? Like, if you're playing 40k, you're playing 40k. If you're playing War Machine, you're playing War Machine. And here we would have a system that kind of like unifies everyone, and no matter which games you play, you can all converge and play OPR games together, and have fun. So um, yeah, I like that idea. Will their stuff be integrated into OPR setting lore? No. That's the important thing. So they are doing their own thing. They have their own settings or whatever, their lore, their stories, and that's cool. But this is just their stuff compatible with the games. It's not that their things are being integrated into our setting or lore. The two things are still separate. Okay, cool. All right, that was that. Yeah, okay. Let me talk a little bit about some new releases that have been coming out. So over the last year and a half, time flies really. We have been releasing 4 new missions every month on Patreon, one for each game. And yeah, basically these missions give you like new ways to play. They give you like um, different settings, different objectives, different like random events, and cool things to do. And yeah, we've been releasing these on Patreon every month. If you subscribe on Patreon, you will get 4 new missions every month. Plus, you get 4 backlog missions from the year before. So basically, you get 8 new missions every month. And the missions can be played pretty much with every game. So, like, if you have a Grimdark Future mission, you can very easily adapt it to play it for Age of Fantasy, or whatever. You could adapt a Age of Fantasy skirmish mission to be played for Firefight, or from the skirmish games to the big games, whatever. Yeah, so that's all cool stuff, and basically we've been collecting everything that we did over the last year and a half, and we now bundle them together into these sort of like little packages, and these are basically our mission packs. So this month we released all 4 mission packs on Wargame Vault and Drive Through RPG. This gives you 72 missions in total, compatible basically with all the games. So each pack is I think $4.99, so it's quite cheap. And yeah, if you buy all the packs, basically have so many missions you can essentially play forever. And we also give you like there's a little page talking about how you can sort of like connect the missions, and create your own little campaign. Have like a little progression system in there, and units that get injured and level up and stuff like that. It's nice. It's you can basically use these like standalone, or just randomize the missions, or kind of create like a mini campaign out of them. Yeah, it's very cool to see that year and a half of work has finally come all together, and we um, yeah, and well, we're now working on the next mission pack. So yeah, new missions are being made, and then again in a year and a half, we're going to have enough to release these bigger bundles. And the idea is to basically just keep doing that. So every year and a half ish, have these new bundles that come out, and have more and more missions, more content for everyone, and more stuff for you to enjoy. So yeah. Okay, cool. Next thing, what else is new? So we have new starter sets on Only Games. So we know that not everybody has a 3D printer. We know that not everybody likes to play with paper models, of course, and people want their physical minis. So we have been creating new bundles, well, basically new starter sets on Only Games for the new armies that have come out. Right now, we have released new starter sets for the Demons of War, the Demons of Change, and the Star Host. Each army gets basically two sets. One is a sort of like, start collecting set. It's like a smaller set that has about 250 points worth of models, and it's a nice way to just like, buy that, get the models that you need to like just start painting, start trying things out, see what you like. Maybe play some games of skirmish or firefight. And then there's a bigger pack, which is called the Start Playing pack, which has about 500 points worth of models. So now you are going to get like a bigger force, and you can play small games off Grimdark Future or Age of Fantasy, of course. Or if you have both sets, you combine them, you have a 750 points army, and you can actually start playing like a nice big game. And then, of course, all of our models every month are being uploaded to Only Games as well. So you can then keep expanding your armies and keep growing them and so on and so forth. And the bundles are all 10% off all the time. And if you're a Patreon subscriber, you actually get 5% off. And whenever we hit a stretch goal, you get another 10% off. So we've been hitting stretch goals all the time now. So yeah, if you get these bundles and you're on Patreon, you have a 10% off bundle with 10% off on top of that. So it's a nice discount there. Yeah, nice. Okay, moving on. Yeah, what else is new? We have Squip. So Squip is a new comic series by Pierre. This is now we had the series Business, which was a comic series about the Grimdark Future universe, and now we have Squip, which is a comic series about the Age of Fantasy universe. And basically it follows the adventures of this Squip merchant that kind of like um, tells you about his adventures in different parts of the Age of Fantasy world. The format is a little bit different than Serious Business. So Serious Business was kind of like, one continuous story, whereas Squip is more about like small adventures. So it kind of like time jumps and goes around and shows you different locations and different things. Yeah, I think it's a really cool way to get a sense of what there is in the Age of Fantasy world and how it works and how factions are and how they relate to each other. And it's just like a fun little thing. You can check it out right now on our website or on Instagram as well. We upload on Instagram. Yeah, there is a new episode every week, every Friday, and then yeah, once we have like the 10 episodes done, the season kind of wraps up, and then the plan is to make a new season of Serious Business. Okay, let me see if there's any questions. Uh, can we do? Okay, no questions about Squid. Okay, cool. All right. What else we got? Okay, so continuing with like new stuff, and now moving on to games. Grimdark Future FTL. So, as you may already know, we have FTL is this generic spaceship battles game that we had, well, that we still have, and we are now theming it. We're now modifying it to be themed around Grimdark Future universe. It's basically like the rules are being reworked a little bit, just kind of like refined here and there, adding a couple new features and slightly changing like HP values and stuff like that. But more importantly, instead of having these 6 generic factions, the game is now going to have 17 factions from in the future. So, robot legions, battle brothers, battle sisters, orcs, everything that you've come to expect from in the future in FTL. And right now, there is a beta for it on Patreon. So if you're a Patreon subscriber, you get access to the beta. And every month we add 2 new factions to the beta for you to check out. Right now, this month we've added the Havoc Brothers and High Elf Fleets. Both cool factions. Very different playstyle between each other. And yeah, right now we have 10 factions out in total. The plan right now is so let me think. So March, April, all the factions are going to be out, and then we are going to release, release the full game out to the public. Um, yeah, we're also planning. I know people always ask about this. We're also planning on making new spaceships for them. We are actually right now in the concepting phase for new spaceships. We want to make sure that whatever we do now, we get the scale right, and we want to make them modular. So one thing that I don't really like about our current spaceship is you kind of just get like one spaceship of each size, and then a squadron, and that's kind of it, and you cannot do anything more with them. And instead what we want to do is we basically want to greatly expand the line and also make modular ships, so that you can kind of customize them and make them look cool, and adapt them to what you want them to be. um, any chance to get Warfleet FTL on the army builder? Yes. So we are also working on that right now. We're still focusing on finishing up the web app and the Army Forge things for the V2.50 beta, so that we can finally come out of beta and provide the army creator, the point calculator, and so on and so forth. But we're also starting to plan and think about how to put FTL on the web app and the Army Forge. Whilst the games are, kind of similar in certain sense. I mean, you still have kind of like, to hit values and defense values and wounds and all that stuff. The format is a little bit different to the point where it's a little bit of work to actually make it, to actually implement it in the web app and in the Army Forge. But it's coming. It's coming. It's definitely something that we're working on. Okay, nice. New games. Oh, haha, there we go. Talking about games. So somebody asked about Cell Swords before. Well, here is the thing. So, Cell Swords has had a very tumultuous development. Blah blah blah. Took time. Things are paused. Doesn't matter. I have gone back into Cell Swords heavily. I've been working on it pretty much every day for the past month ish, something like that, or more even. Um, and yeah, basically, Cell Swords is being reworked. Number one thing that I'm actually doing is I'm changing the name. It used to be called Cell Swords, and it used to cause a lot of confusion. One of the questions we got all the time was, well, what the hell is Cell Swords all about? And one of the feedbacks we got was, I didn't understand what the name meant, and so I didn't even check out the game. So we're changing it up, and Cell Swords is going to be renamed to Age of Fantasy Quest. And well, to kind of like give an idea of what it's about. So it's about heroes, questing, dungeon crawling, co-op, versus PvE kind of situation. I'm also kind of changing the way that the game is going to be played. So originally, the idea of Cell Swords was that, well, now Age of Fantasy Quest, was that you are kind of just going to have the core rules for free on the website, and then the game was going to be fully based on these narrative campaigns that we were going to release, and basically like the whole game system fell upon us, or depended upon us continuously pumping out campaigns. And then part of the campaigns were going to be released for free, and then the rest of the campaign was going to be paid. And yeah, it basically it wasn't clicking with me. It didn't sound right. It didn't sound fun. Something wasn't right, and so basically I kind of scrapped the whole idea. And the game is being reworked. So how is it going to work now? You're going to have your core rules. Everything that I'm talking about right now is going to be free stuff. So as always, you can expect a lot of free stuff with OPR. So core rules for free. You're going to have your hero creator for free. So create your hero, get your skills, get your equipment, special traits. Maybe your hero is blind or he's a drunkard. Set up your hero, ready for the adventure. You have 4 heroes per adventure. And then instead of depending on these narrative campaigns that we're going to make, there is going to be fully free again, a campaign generator. So that's what I'm working on right now. What I'm focusing on a lot is fully modular campaign generator. So you open this thing up, it kind of generates a campaign, it generates chapters, it generates quests, it generates biomes, it generates everything. It generates primary quests, secondary quests, enemies, events, terrain types, biomes. I think I already said biomes. Time of day, weather conditions. It's just this huge. Well, it's not huge. It's still gonna be like about 5 pages or something. But it's this whole system that allows you to generate these quests, and basically you're going to be able to replay this endlessly without getting bored. And then on top of that, another thing that's going to come with it, again for free, always for free, is a compendium. And the compendium, the idea of the compendium is basically like, so in the main mission generator, it's you kind of have like you have these 6 generic biomes, and you have like everything is kind of generic. You have your basic biomes, urban biome, grasslands, volcanic biome. In the main book, you have your basic enemies, like fighters, shooters, heavies, bosses, beasts, swarms, whatever. But we're going to have a compendium, and the compendium is basically going to give you faction specific stuff for all of these. So it's going to give you faction specific. So imagine you're making a campaign. You have your 4 heroes, whatever. You have your whatever you created, your fighter, your wizard, your archer, your bard, whatever. You have your 4 heroes, cool. And now you say, hey, I'm a patron supporter, for example, and right now the Ratmen are out, so I want to play a campaign where I go to the Ratmen lands and I kind of fight them and for treasure and whatever. And so in the compendium, you're going to be able to like flip over to the pages for the Ratmen, and then for every unit in the game, you are going to have stats. So every model in the game is going to have stats for enemies, for NPCs that you're going to be able to have. It's also going to come with parts for the generator. So it's going to have everything's kind of like a biome. So you're going to have like the Ratman biome, and then you're going to have Ratman specific, special conditions, special events, special the rewards, special equipment, special skills, special traits. You're going to have a bunch of stuff. So yeah, the idea is basically that we're going to have this compendium that is already going to be huge, lots of stuff in there for you to play with. And it's as we release new stuff, the compendium gets updated, so you have more and more stuff. So if we release some new models, they're going to be immediately playable in Age of Fantasy Quest. Yeah, very excited about it, as you can hear. And yes, of course, then we're going to see like how can we further monetize the game. Maybe we're going to make the narrative campaigns, and of course those will be paid. Maybe we'll make some expansions, those will be paid. Maybe we'll make some, I don't know, some extended generators. Not sure. The important thing is everything that everything that you need to play the game and to keep replaying it is going to be free. Yeah, I'm very excited about it. Yes. Okay. Will you take into account potential translations? No, we are not planning official translations. We're just not there yet. The company is not currently set up to do translation. One of the things about the translation is it's not that simple. If you want to do it properly, it's not that simple, because once you start offering translation, number one, no matter how many languages you ask, people are going to keep asking for more languages. And number two, everything that you do will have to go through a translation phase first, right? So if I right now, if I think, hey, I'm gonna make this cool game, Age of Fantasy Quest, and I'm gonna come up with a lot of stuff, I just make it and then I just release it. But if I have to then translate it, okay, I have to make it, and then it has to go into like we would have to create an entire department for translation, and then that translation is going to have at least a couple of core languages. So I would suppose it would need at least like German, French, Spanish, Italian. I think those are usually the main major languages that things are translated for. So you would need at least 4 translators, but then maybe not everybody's always available. So you need more people on backup. Then you're going to need a translation coordinator. to make sure that everything is right. You're going to need editors to make sure that everything is proofread and everything is right. You're going to need to make sure to find translators that understand that you're not just translating like a regular book. You're translating rules. So now it's not just about translating the actual words. It's like the meaning and the rules have to function. It's complicated. I have thought about it, and I hear people ask about it, and of course I do think about it. But we're just not there yet. We're still a small company. You have to understand. A year ago we were like 5, and now we're like 50. So it's like, give us time. This is a big thing. But yes. Anyway, Age of Fantasy Quest. Going back to the original thing. So right now, like I said, I'm working on all this cool new stuff. I am aiming at having the new version of Age of Fantasy Quest with the mission generator, with everything, and with at least one compendium part. So I want to start with the Ratmen one, so that people can already start playing it. I aim to have it out by December on Patreon, of course, as a beta, early access. So yeah, if you are excited about Quest, become a patron in December, and you will check it out. Wait, and the core of Quest will be free. Yes, the core rules of Quest will be free. Are there plans of making Quest compatible with Grimdark? Yes and no. I mean, yes, in the sense that I want to make another game, which is going to be called. Right now, I'm not feeling super creative with the names, but I think it's maybe just going to be called like Grimdark Future Heroes, or maybe Grimdark Future Adventures. Not sure, one of the two. And basically, yeah, it's going to be a Grimdark Future version of Quest, and it's going to have all the same stuff: hero creation, skills, items, biomes, compendium, blah 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 blah. All the stuff that you can expect. Yeah, nice. Okay, cool. Very excited about Quest. All right, let's move on to the next thing. By the way, I don't know how you peeps are feeling about this, but this new format of having the slides, for me at least, it's very cool. It kind of guides me without having to come up with things on the spot. Okay, what do we got next? All right. Oh yeah, another small game update. So I think I updated this yesterday or 2 days ago. So if, as you well know, there are some new HDF units out there. So if you're an HDF player or a Grimdark Future player and you want to check out the HDF, we have now added new units to the HDF. I think it's actually not a huge change. I think the main things that were added were there's a new tank. So HDF had their battle tank, but now there's a heavy battle tank, which is basically like it's a bigger, badder tank, right? It's a tough 18. It has more guns. It has a bunch of like attachments that you can have. It's gonna be expensive, but you can really load this vehicle up and make it extremely powerful. So, but tough 18, so it's gonna be expensive and easy to take out with like heavy fusion and stuff like that. So yeah, also be careful with it. But yes, on top of that, we added the rules for a field. What is it called? Field artillery, I think it's what it's called. Something like that. Field artillery. It's basically like imagine your weapon teams, but much bigger. So it's I think they're tough 6, defense 2. Tough 6, defense 2. It comes with 3 different weapon types. The weapons are let me think. So I think they have like a heavy laser cannon, which is pretty good. It comes with a sort of like a battle cannon as well, and then it comes with a sort of rocket launching mortar type weapon. If you need some heavy support for your HDF, there you got it. And then I think the last thing is just a tiny change. I think we added an additional weapon for the basic HDF infantry squads, which is a sort of like drum fed rifle thing. It's basically like just a stronger rifle. So it's 24 inches A2. And yeah, cool. So all right, that's Grimdark Future. Let's see what we got next. Oh yeah, also this is not quite ready yet, but I want to put it out there because get the hype out there. Hopefully this will be out soon. But basically, yeah, we are so uh, OPR was created to be very friendly to new players, and we're always trying to push how to further help new players. So one question that we get pretty much every day is, where can I find? New players come in and they're like, where can I find a pre-made army list for me to play with my armies? Now, there's a little issue with that, which is we have so many armies in the game. I think there's like 60 armies in the game, something like that. 50, 60 with all the various like detachments and demon things and so on and so forth. So ton of armies in the game. Things are constantly changing, right? We change rules, we change units, whatever. And so us manually making 60 lists, plus you have to think about there's the regular games and the skirmish games. That's a huge amount of work that then would have to be constantly maintained. And then people say like, well, I want, do you have a starter army for 500 points? Do you have a starter army for 750? Do you have one for 1,000, 1,500, for 2,000? And so instead of us, going crazy and trying to create hundreds of lists, essentially, we are going to implement an army generator in Army Forge. So the idea is quite simple. It's basically going to be an additional button when you're in the Army Forge and you go for like create army, and then you're going to have like a generate army button. You click on that and basically you select your point size. So imagine like I want to create an army for 1,500 points or 2,000 points or whatever. Click on that, generate army, and then it will automatically build a list for you. The list will follow competitive structure just to make sure that things don't go a little bit too crazy. Because with random generation, things can go crazy. It will create a basic list. It will have heroes in it. They will be attached to units. It will not have upgrades. That's the important thing. So it just generates a list. It leaves a couple of points. You're basically usually going to have like a couple of points left over to kind of like add upgrades. And basically, yeah, it gets you started. So if you are a new player and you don't know what you're doing and you just want to like get going, just put your point value, boom, generate army, boom, you got it. And then of course, it's Army Forge, so you can then adapt it. If you say like, okay, this army that's generated, it's cool, but I don't know. Thinking about HDF, it's cool, but I don't want to play with, I don't want veterans in my thing. Okay, just take them out, add something else, and just kind of like adapt it. So for new players, the army generator is basically going to be, it's basically going to be a way to get into the game. And for veterans, it's just a way to like, hey, I don't feel like thinking about what army to make, and just generate an army and then start from there and see what you like. On top of that, by the way, just gonna put this out there for those of you that are on Patreon. Again, a way to try and help new players build lists. We have now started already in November, because we release new models every month. We are now also providing starter lists every month. So with that starter list for the models that you're getting that month. So imagine like this month you have Ratmen, and for the Ratmen, there's a what's the units? There's a captain, there's a war throne, there's the regular warriors, and then there's the weapon teams. So you support on Patreon, you get all these models. What to do with it? So we provide you with a list for Age of Fantasy Skirmish, a 250 points list, and for regular Age of Fantasy, a 750 points list, already pre-made for those units. So again, same thing. You don't have to think. You just pick up the list, print those models, paint them, get playing. Yeah, and you can always you can keep saving those lists. There's going to be new lists every month. You can save those lists. So for example, like if in the future you're like, hey, I have, I was supporting whilst the Ratmen were being made, and I was supporting whilst the Lust Demons were being made, you're going to have a couple of lists. And then if you just want to quickly get started with your friends, it's like, okay, I have the models, I have the list, boom. Take two lists together, start playing. Yeah. Yeah, cool. Nice. All right. Let's go. All right, let's go for the next thing. What do we got? Okay, cool. Yeah. So we talked about the games. Let's talk about the lore. So as you may or may not know, we have been working very hard on essentially taking a look at the entire lore of both of the games, both of the settings, and we've been taking a look at all of like the core lore, how the universe function, and like every army. What is every army about? What is every faction about? How do they work? Why are they? What's their history? Who are they now? What are they all about? And so we're working on that, and hopefully soon enough. I'm hoping January, February ish. So beginning of next year, we're going to start updating all of the army books with new and expanded lore. So right now, I think you have about, there's like around 250 words or something per army book, um, and we're going to vastly expand that. So I think you're going to have double, double, around like 500 words of lore. So you pick up your army book, boom, you have like a bunch of lore. Well, if you don't care about the lore, you just skip it, you go play, and who cares? But if you care about the lore, you can actually read all the lore there. And then on top of that, we are going to be releasing short stories. Again, aiming at beginning to mid 2023. We're going to start releasing short stories. The idea is that we're going to be releasing 2 short stories every month, one for Age of Fantasy and one for Grimdark Future. And yeah, and I thought, to kind of like already start building the hype, I would give you all, just a little snippet of like these 2 new stories that are coming. So I'm going to give you just a little bit overview of like one of the news stories that's coming from Grimdark Future, which is called Research Interrupted. And Research Interrupted is basically going to be a short story about an alien hive's research team that is kind of like perusing, scavenging in a derelict spaceship, and they're kind of like looking for things to kind of like research truly. And as they are going around there and researching and collecting technology, a team of battle brother destroyers hops onto the ship, and basically it's sort of like a space Hulk scenario. So you have these battle brothers destroyers going up against the alien hives in dark hallways and firefights and crazy things happening, as both teams try to like survive, and the aliens try to escape with technology. The battle brothers try to stop them. Yeah, that's kind of like the premise of this. That's kind of like the premise of this story. Very cool. Written by Austin. Yeah, it's gonna be a cool story once it's out. Yeah, looking forward to this one as well. Looking forward to most things. Let's be honest. A lot of stuff that's coming is cool. But yeah, I hope you like the teaser. Okay. What do we got next? Okay, staying in the realm of lore. So another thing that we're doing. Sorry, I'm just gonna take a sip of water. Another thing that we're doing in order to expand our lore is that we are working on world guides. So the world guides are basically um, okay. The world guides are basically going to be these 2 books, one for each setting, completely for free as always. That are going to give you these are like 35, 40-page books that basically give you an overview of the history of that setting. Basically, how do we get to where we are now, and then an overview of like how does the setting work, how is it structured, what are its worlds, what are its themes, how does transportation work, how does magic work, how does whatever work, what are some of the factions, what are some of the locations, and basically just giving you everything that you need, one, to understand how the setting works, but two, also all the tools that you need to kind of like create your own stories, right? You sure, maybe you buy OPR minis, and you like to follow the official lore, but maybe you kind of like want to retheme them and be like, well, maybe come up with like an army that comes from a different place, that works a little bit differently, and you kind of want to understand um, what would be feasible and what would make sense within the setting. How can I make something that is sort of canon? And this world guide gives you that, and also it's going to give you the context even just for regular games. Like if you go and just play even a one-off match, you can kind of understand. Okay, well, I know that there is this type of planets in this world, or these type of resources that they could fight over, and you can kind of like kind of, again, it's just like a tool to help you build. Anyway, and yeah, so I'm thinking that like in every stream, I'm kind of basically going to highlight this and show you a little bit of the art that is being made for it. So yeah, today I just wanted to highlight this piece of art from the Age of Fantasy World Guide. Of course, everything is work in progress. But yeah, basically this piece of art showcases a sort of abstract representation of how the Age of Fantasy world is structured. So the Age of Fantasy world is structured in different planes. So they're essentially different realms of existence, and and they're kind of like well, and they all coexist at the same time, but they're not all in the same place, so to say. I- Different planes of existence, essentially. And yeah, basically, in the world of Age of Fantasy, you can use void gates to essentially travel, within the same plane or between planes, and kind of end up in a different world. Yeah, and this piece of art is kind of like trying to showcase this a more abstract view of like how all the things how there are all of these different planes and every plane is different and they're all kind of like floating about and um yeah, I thought it was a cool piece to show you. Okay, cool. Let's go for the next thing. Okay, all right. Now we go into 3D models. So, yeah, we're going to start talking about the Battle Sisters. So, Battle Sisters, yeah. First thing first, we are putting an enormous amount of work into the Battle Sisters. We are constantly just working on them. We made the concepts, then we started working on them. We went back into concepting to improve them, sculpting to improve the concepts, boom, 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 and it's just a back and forth. We basically have these sort of like check-in meetings every week ish, where we kind of like see like, okay, where are we now? What is the status? I just had a meeting like this morning, and yeah, we're basically just constantly trying to improve the design. We think we are getting closer and closer to what we actually want from the Battle Sisters. Just as a little reminder, so the Battle Sisters are basically supposed to be these sort of like baroque um baroque style nuns, battle nuns, inspired by like Spanish Semana Santa, and and so kind of like every aspect of their design kind of tries to reflect that. And yeah, and they in the lore they're basically all following in the footsteps of the God Queen, and the symbol of the God Queen is this she kind of like ascends, and she has four wings, and so you can see like this element of the four wings in and the wings in general in various parts of the design, and all of the baroque elements, of course. And yeah, so the Battle Sisters, yeah, we're working on them hard. Uh, Literally, this version that you're seeing this morning, this model was very different, and we're just tweaking and tweaking and tweaking and tweaking, and making sure to improve the models before release. Unfortunately, this does mean that things are kind of slowing down. So we're not sure that we're going to be able to have the models ready for the release on the 4th of December. I'm hoping to be able to get the Battle Sisters out, at least the first units to be out by. Okay, I'm going to try to be very realistic or very pessimistic. Um, First week, second week of December, something like that. First to second week of December, we're hoping to have them out, and hopefully have all of the models out by the end of December. December also holiday season. People taking time off and stuff like that. It's a bit hectic. But yeah. In any case, very cool. We hadn't done, a humanoid. I don't think we did the Eternal Dynasty like at the beginning of the year, which was the last time we did like a humanoid sci-fi army. Um, and yeah, this is refreshing, but it's a challenge, but it's very cool. How do you balance details on models versus ease of painting? So interesting. Well, basically, within our design process, already from the concepting phase, we're kind of setting ourselves some baseline rules as to how many different details we can put on the model, and where. So, like, if we're going to have an arm, we want to kind of limit to, like, okay, we can have one asset or one detail or one item for the arm instead of having like five, because it's very easy to kind of like let things go away, like go away, get off tracks, whatever, and you just keep adding more and more stuff to the model, and then it just becomes super busy. In terms of ease of painting, interesting here. So like the Baroque style is very highly ornamented, but it's all the same material. So if you take a look at, for instance, like a Baroque style lamp, it's extremely detailed, but it's all gold. A little bit kind of like how we did with the Plague Demons, where they have a lot of details supposedly on them. And if you want, sure, you can paint each armor plate a different color and each little fungus a different color. Yes, but if you want, you just paint them one color, do a wash, maybe pick out some details, and the balusters are going to be the same. So whilst the Baroque style does seem very highly ornamented, and maybe even complicated to paint, it's all essentially the same color. You just make it all gold or silver or whatever color you want. By the way, I know some people have been asking for a fully helmeted version of the head because not everybody is very good, if me included, at painting miniature faces. So we're looking into that. But yeah, the idea is that we're going to have, the latest plan is that every miniature is going to have a version with the face where you can see the skin and the hair, a version with a sort of like veil, and then a version with a full helmet. That's the plan. Okay, let me show you. I think I have a couple more pictures. Yes. So the weapons again, Baroque style. It's actually interesting if you take a look at them, and you're going to see this more when we go into the special weapons. But they're essentially based off chandeliers and candle holders, and other items from the Baroque, and you just basically like tilt them to the side, and you get a really cool silhouette for a weapon. Um, and here, like in the basic weapons, you can essentially see it like in the muzzle and in the back part. You can kind of see like the Baroque influence, and of course the wings. Right, the wings are one of the main motifs from the faction. So the clips are wings, and then the weapons get a bit weirder as we go into the special weapons. So let me go to the next slide. Yes, here you can see the special weapons. So again, literally, if you take these weapons and you tilt them upwards, and well, you change the details, whatever. They're actually just Baroque Baroque style items. So chandeliers and whatever, staffs, pillars, and so on and so forth. So in this picture you can see actually a bunch of the different special weapons. So on the top left, you can see the shred rifle. This does not have an analog in other games. This is an OPR thing. On the top middle, you can see the plasma rifle. It's still being a little bit modified. All the weapons, of course, are work in progress. But yes, that's the plasma rifle. On the right side, you can see the flamethrower, and not so visible, but on the bottom left, you can see the fusion rifle. Um, yeah, and then we also have for even for the basic sister squad, we have heavy weapons. And so here you can see like the heavy versions of some of the weapons. So on the left side, you can see the heavy machine gun. The clip right now is kind of like a placeholder. Let's say it's going to have to be changed. We're thinking of either like a drum mag or maybe something like that. Maybe something also like wing themed would be cool. To be seen, to be worked on. In the middle, you can see the heavy flamethrower with six nozzles. Is that what they're called? So really heavy. And then on the right, you can see the heavy fusion rifle. One thing that is, so to bring you in a little bit into the minis making process. So one thing that we realized when making some of the previous armies, I think especially this came into question with the Jackals and the Eternal Dynasty, is that simply like if you want to make modular kits with modular like weapon swaps, you need to make sure that the way that weapons are held is the same. So we had made weapons before where every special weapon had a different grip. One was held like this, and then one had a shorter grip. One was held from the top like this. One was held from the top like this. One was, I don't know, held like this. and it's kind of chaos in sculpting and even in design. And so if you actually take a closer look at the weapons now, you can see that they all follow a very similar grip style. Even though the weapons look different, they follow a similar grip style, and all of the grips are at the exact same position, so that if you have the heavy machine gun or the flamethrower, they're always held in the same place. Really helps with design, really helps with sculpting, modularity, and so on and so forth. So, a little tidbit there for you. Will the lore include some picture summaries of the various weapons? So, okay, right now, like I said, we're going to have the world guides that we're going to be releasing, and they're going to give you an overview of the world as a whole. The plan is that in the future, we're going to start releasing faction guides. So the faction guides is basically like an old school Warhammer style codex, but without the rules. So it's basically like, imagine if we were to make when we make the faction guide for the Battle Sisters, you're going to get tons of stuff. You're going to get the basic history of the faction. You're going to get a timeline of the faction, and then you're going to get a ton of stuff. You're going to have like locations. How does their society work? How is everyday life? What do they dress like? What jobs do they have? Sorry. What currency do they use? And then go into details. What is their equipment like? What is everything called? What are their weapons like? How do they function? How are their armies organized? What different types of sisterhoods are there? What are different color schemes for them? And then also going into like every unit having like a nice picture with like a little bit of lore. And basically, giving you an overview of the whole army in a little book. And then yes, in that case, we're going to have picture summaries of all the weapons and what they are and how they function. And I think it's going to be very cool, but it's going to take a while until we get there. Don't forget, again, we are a small team, and we are trying to catch up to like 40 years of of existing work and lore and stuff. So it's a huge endeavor. Basically, the OS books without the rules. Yes, exactly. And you can expect them for fantasy and sci-fi. It's a huge project. Okay, cool. All right, that was the Battle Sisters. Now let's take a look at some of the Ratmen that are coming next month. So we have the Grenadiers. Grenadiers, very cool. They're grenade throwing rats. They come in 5 different poses, as always, male and female heads. We actually adapted the rules for them slightly. So originally they always threw like just poison bombs, but now they throw these kind of like fire bombs, and then you can upgrade the unit to essentially have this other rat. I don't have the picture here right now, but basically you have this rat that's kind of like carrying a backpack, which has like a whole contraption to turn the grenades into like poison grenades. It's very cute. It has like a little rat body on top, like charging it. So it actually, it's going to be a nice little thing where like, you have your little unit, and then you can have like a hanger on to give them the poison rule in when shooting. Okay, we have the Grenadiers, and then we have a hero kind of to go with them, which is the Engineer. The Engineer comes with 2 options. Here you can see the drill option. And basically, like he has a heavy drill that he carries, or she, of course. You can build it either way. As always, all the models are modular. All the models can be male and female. And this is really cool. Like if you put this model in a unit, then basically the whole unit gets ambushed. So you could make your unit of 10 Grenadiers, put the Engineer hero with the drill, and then just ambush behind enemy lines, and then just start pelting them with bombs. It's a cool way to pester the enemy. It also comes with a second loadout, which has like a sort of like toxin gun and like a big wrench tool. And can be used with different special rules, or just like as a melee beat stick, or a shooter also in skirmish. Okay, then we have the monks. Okay, very cool. Unfortunately, this is not the latest screenshot because so the monks are very cool. They come, they have these these cool little like sort of like face masks that are also like they have like this wooden piece underneath that sort of like protects them. And they come with two weapon options. They come either with sensors, and unfortunately here in the screenshot it's not like that yet, but the sensor actually has like a cool smoke trail behind. And yeah, they come with these sort of like sensors that are sort of like sensor flails, that they use to like whack the enemy, and they have poison actually in the game, so pretty good. Well, if you roll sixes, pretty good. And they also come with a dual dagger option as well. So you know, 5 poses, everything modular, male heads, female heads, sensors, or dual hand weapons, and then also you know, a command group. So you're gonna have a sergeant, a musician, and a standard bearer. You know, the usual stuff. Yeah, also a very cool unit. And then what else we got? Oh yeah, and then we have a hero to go with them essentially. So this is the priest. Again, always modular, male head, female head. Oh yeah, just a quick note again about the sensor. So we know that not everybody likes to paint smoke trails and stuff like that. Some people struggle with it. Me too. So actually, like all of them are modular, so you can make them with or without the smoke trail. So you know, easier for you. More modularity. And then yeah, and then we have the priest. Priest comes with a male head, female head. Yeah, it's basically just like a sort of like wizard hero for the Ratmen. Can go with the in a unit with the monks to buff them, or you know, independently, or join a different unit. In the back, so the priest basically. So, all right, a little bit of lore. So the Ratmen basically have this. Okay, the Ratmen basically live in these sort of like castle cities that are constantly under siege by other enemies, and at then some point, the Ratmen were about to be overrun and completely destroyed. But then a goddess came down from the sky, and kind of like smited, whatever, killed all the enemies, and then kind of vanished again. And since then, there is a cult that has formed in amongst the Ratmen, which is the cult of the Mother Rat, and the symbol of the Mother Rat is basically this 5-pronged, you know, crown. And so you can actually see like you, if you pay attention, you can actually see the symbol everywhere throughout the faction, because the religion is kind of like taking over the faction. Some think it's good, some think it's bad. Interesting. More to be discussed when the lore is out. But yeah, so the priest actually has this big shield in the back, with the 5 you know, things, whatever. It symbolizes a crown. Yeah, it's a cool detail. And in the back, of course, there's always a little rat buddy like holding onto a piece of cheese. And yeah, we're also providing a version, of course, without the rat buddy. We know that not everybody likes the little rat buddies, so we try to make them modular as well. I think so far we've succeeded. Okay, I think that's it for the Ratman, and we can now move on to the next one, the Star Host. Okay, cool. So new models coming for the Star Host in December as well. So first up, the Swarms. These are super cute. Here you can see one of the 3 compositions, and basically, yeah, they're just like these tiny, like jungle-themed cyber critters. You have snakes there, you have frogs, you have turtles, you have these sort of like dog-like things, you have these sort of crocodiles. Yeah, cool little unit. You know, there's 3 bases of them, and they're all kind of like a little bit different, in different compositions and different themes. Yeah, very cool little dudes. I think in the rules, yeah, there are swarms, so 6+6+, and tough 3, and I think they have poison, so they're also pretty gnarly. Like if you can get them, you know, into the enemy front lines. But yeah, that's them. Then a hero, a new hero. Here we have a version with the 2 fists, but well, this is the Gator Veteran. Comes with 2 fists, but also comes with these sort of like punch knives kind of things, wrist knives, and also with like these big. It's sort of like a hammer type of thing, a mace. Modular, as always, everything modular. You can use them on the left, on the right, both. So you can have double fists, or you can have like a mace in this fist, or a fist and a spike, and however you want. Also with like a rocket launcher on the shoulder, as it is with the Starhost skaters, and yeah, modular as well. Yeah, very cool. Bigger, badder version of the gators. He's larger. He has more intricate armor. It's actually really cool. He has like this sort of like headgear that's broken on one side. I think that's going to be a very cool like painting opportunity, because you can actually see the eye on one side. Yeah, very cool. And then in December, so December is the last month of the Star Host, so we're gonna finish big kind of, and with some of the bigger pieces. And so we get the Star Host version of the Spinosaurus. Yeah, it's basically like, as always, like a Star Host, more armored version of the Spinosaurus from this fantasy version. But a different mount. In the fantasy version, the mount is a priest, whereas the mount here is a chief. He comes with a really cool long spear. Yeah, this guy's pretty deadly also in the game. Cool pose. Yeah, pretty badass. And then finally we have the Triceratops. As always, these models that we're showing off here are work in progress. This one is not finished either. There's still some details that are missing, things that are changing, and it's also going to be modular. But yeah, the Triceratops, pretty cool in how like it's different in sci-fi than it is in fantasy. So the Triceratops basically comes with like three different versions. So one version has this big missile launcher on top. Another version has a sort of like portal in the back, and you can basically use it as a transport. So units can like use the portal somehow to like transport in and out of it. And then the third version essentially has like, unfortunately I don't have it here for you to see, but essentially has like a bunch of geckos with these special rifles, and they can shoot from it. So yeah, pretty cool. You can have these sort of like three different setups for it. It's very interesting that the Triceratops is also a transport in fantasy. It's not a transport, but in sci-fi it's a transport, because um, transport usually in the sci-fi game, like in Grimdark Future, they're tough 12, they're tough 6, they have the fast rule, and they kind of like zoom in, drop their troops off, and usually they kind of like get destroyed. Or if they don't get destroyed, they usually just have like maybe like a storm rifle on top, or like a small turret, nothing much to deal damage with. Whereas for the Star Host, the Triceratops is different in that it's tough 12, so much tougher. It doesn't have fast, so it takes, it's a transport more, it's more of a protective transport rather than a speed boost transport. And then once it also gets to the front line, it can go into melee and actually deal some real damage. So not to be messed with. Yeah, not to be underestimated. And of course, if you don't use it as transport, you can put the big missile launcher in the back, and wreak havoc on the enemy. I think that's all of the Star Host. Okay, so we go into the legendary. So, cool. The legendary for December is going to be the Epic Avatar of Plague. Very cool model. Yeah, basically, unfortunately, you guys haven't seen the Avatar of Plague yet, but it's similar, but the epic version of it. Very cool. He has like these big spike horns on the back. He has this huge like beard. He has like a big pouch filled with mushrooms. Lots of them actually. This big snail, whatever. Lots of detail, lots of cool painting opportunities. And he actually comes with a sort of throne. So he's actually going to be like seated. He has like a huge, he's gonna have like this huge spear, and he's sort of like seated back in this throne, like commanding the units. Yeah, very cool. I love the idea. I don't have the pictures here, but I've seen the the pose version. Yeah, it's gonna be very cool. Oh, and we have a close up of the head. So yeah, you can see here. The legendary models truly are incredible. So like this guy is 100, and when standing, he's like 130 or more, even 140 millimeters tall, something like that. Lots of detail. The sculptors are doing an amazing job with all these models. And yeah, very cool, very cool. Okay, so with this, I think, let me see. Yes, with this, we have finished the section talking about the um, the 3D models, and we're going to go a little bit into concepts. Um, oh, this is actually okay. We have like 40 slides, and we're already at slide 30, so this is going at a good pace. Very nice. Compared to the very first stream that we had, which was 5 hours. Anyway, okay, so let's take a look at some of the concepts for stuff that's coming up. So, for the Battle Sisters, like I said, we are a little bit delayed because we're trying to make sure that the models look as good as possible. So I'm going to show you some concepts of models that are coming out in December, not in January. The first one is the fanatics. So the fanatics are basically these badasses that are less armored and use these sort of like huge double-handed like chainsaw, heavy chainsaw swords. Compared to the regular sisters, yeah, they're a little bit lightly armored more lightly. Their design relies more on like thick ropes, sort of like scrolls. We want to give them like little what do you call them? Like these little signets and stuff like that. Um, yeah, very cool. Lighter, more mobile, more churchy, even in a sense, even more churchy than the churchy sisters. Um, yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, you don't see it here with a couple of head options as well. You can see one on the right, so with a sort of like rosary over the head, and there's another head option that kind of like has a full mask with like holes. Very cool. As always, inspired by Semana Santa. So, yeah, you can actually find references. Well, yeah, you can find the reference if you just Google Semana Santa, you can find a lot of the references that we used. Very cool. And then here, yeah, you can see some of the details. So you can see the details for the ropes. Oh, the seals, right? The seals with the symbols, the heavy chainsaws, and then you can see some of the poses that we're planning. Um, yeah, they're gonna be badasses, like just huge chainsaws. Yeah, absolutely deadly. Very cool. Yeah, I don't remember their exact stats. I think they're A3, AP2 or something like that. Plus they have Furious. So yeah, they're pretty good in the game as well. Just throw them at the enemy. Well, less armored, of course. So I think they're def 5 up. But just throw them at the enemy and just watch them just um, do a charge, cut the enemy down, and then die. That's kind of like their thing. Um, okay, then what do we have? Okay, the Sister Superior. So we have the regular Sister Warriors, and then of course we have a hero that's going to come with them, and it's the Superior, the Battle Sister Superior. Yeah, the Superior is basically just an evolution in a sense of the um, of the Battle Sisters. So she has like a bigger robe. It's like a cape actually almost. She has different details on the chest, on the shoulders, different headgear. Um, yeah, lots of different details. And we can see here. Okay, yes, we can see here. She's gonna come with a ton of weapon options. So, regular pistol, fusion pistol, flamer pistol, plasma pistol, shred pistol, then a rifle with different mods that you can like kind of like put it on. So you can give her the regular rifle, or you can give her a rifle that has like attachments, has a crossbow attachment, a fusion attachment, a plasma attachment, a flamer attachment. Yeah, very cool. She also comes with a shotgun, which I think is going to look absolutely badass. She can also take a plasma rifle, which is also pretty cool, and then a storm rifle. First time we're seeing the storm rifle in the Battle Sisters design here. Very cool. It's like a double barrel, magazines on top, just force of destruction. And then she also comes with a couple of weapon options. She's going to have like a more regular sword. She's going to have an energy sword. And she's going to have like a sort of like energy fist, which I think came out really cool because it's just a badass big glove thing, and not just like I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of those bulky, just one big glove design. I like the fact that here it looks kind of mobile. It reminds me of Vi from Arcane, maybe something like that. Anyway, and then on the right you can see like some pose suggestions that we're kind of experimenting with. But yeah, I think in terms of battle sisters, that's it. Yeah, it's gonna be cool. That's all I want to say. Ratmen. Okay, so Ratmen for January. So now we're gonna look at January concepts. So for the Ratmen, what are we gonna have? We're gonna have the veterans. So actually, if you take a look um, at the uh, at the current release, Ratman War Throne. In the War Throne, you can actually already see the veterans because it's the veterans that are carrying the throne. But yes, so you're also going to get a standalone unit of Ratmen. Yeah, they're basically like heavily armored rats with these big capes. Very cool. They come with 2 weapon options. They come with halberds, or they come with great swords. And then of course, male heads, female heads, right? The usual. And then of course, also they come with a sergeant, a battle standard, and a musician. And very cool. I have to say, a big shout out to Andre. He's the guy that made these, and he made a pose for the sergeant that looks incredible. Honestly, from my perspective, one of the best models that we've ever made. I can't wait to have it released. It's almost too cool to be just the sergeant for a regular unit. Yeah, the hype is real for that one. Then we have okay, then we go kind of like again into like the engineering thing. So the Ratman tiny lore thing here. So the Ratmen are kind of like divided into many different guilds inside of these castle cities that they have. Um, and so we have like kind of the warrior guild where you have like the warriors, the veterans, the captain, whatever. Then we have the cult guild kind of. So we have the monks, we have the priests, we have those. Um, and then we have like the engineering guild, and the engineering guild is the one that kind of like makes the wacky weapons and pistols and whatever. And anyway, so yeah, so some of the releases that are coming now in January are going to be focused on that. And so we're going to have the warlock. The warlock is very cool. Has this like cool backpack with sort of like these vials of toxin, and has like a cool halberd, which is kind of like an energy halberd thing that also sort of like connects to this backpack that provides energy. Has a cool toxin, kind of like double barrel toxin shotgun with like vials of again poison stuff, juice, energy juice in there. And he also carries like a cool little lantern in the back. As always, modular, different heads. So you can not put the lantern if we want, whatever. The model, literally saw it today. Looks amazing. Okay, then what do we have? Ooh, the Ratmaster. So, okay, maybe the order here was wrong, but who cares? The Ratmaster. So, one of the units that you're going to get in January as well is the Rat Swarm. Unfortunately, I don't have a concept art for it because it didn't really need one, but it's basically like these little bases of like lots of tiny little rats that just like swarm. There's also going to be eventually like giant rats, not giant rats. I mean, there's also kind of giant rats, but bigger rats that are also used to like swarm. Um, and anyway, to lead all of these sort of like swarming units, we have the Ratmaster, and so the Ratmaster, yeah, it's this cool. It's this cool sort of like almost hero unit. It's actually like in the rules, it's actually just an upgrade for the swarms and the ogres and stuff like that. So when you buy the upgrade, I think they get furious and fearless, something like that. Don't quote me on that. Whatever, they get some extra special rules. And in any case, yeah, really cool. We kind of slightly changed it. We're actually doing the sculpt right now. We kind of changed it. Instead of having like this little backpack with lots of weapons, he actually carries like a huge like double-handed sword. And yeah, we're making basically like a pose which is kind of like leading all of these like rats into the charge. Very cool. And then also we're planning on doing an alternative take where it doesn't have the rats. So for instance, like if it's leading the ogres, you maybe don't want the version that's leading the rats, so you have another version. Not 100% sure if we're going to put the sword there or how exactly we're going to do it, but yeah, it's in the works. Does the engineer have a mouse buddy? No, unfortunately not. So We're trying to put the rat buddies in as many units as possible, but if it doesn't fit, we don't put it. And so the engineer and the the warlock, for example, they already have a lot of detail. They have like these big backpacks with lots of things and cables, and adding some rats on top of that would have been more messy. Okay, and then finally, okay, the last concept for the Ratmen for January is we're finally going to get artillery for them. So this is their cannon. Also very cool design. So kind of has like these wheels. Has like this wheel structure with like these things in the back, so the rats can lift it and like roll it. I don't know what it's called in English, but like whatever. It's this thing that you use also for like in the garden. I don't know what it's called. Whatever. You lift it and you kind of like roll it into the battlefield and you drop it off, and then it has like this huge cannon just like boom, destroys the enemy. Yeah, very cool. We're thinking of adding like some details to it, like giving you like a little cart with ammo or something like that. To yeah, to just give you more stuff. Always giving more. And then what do we have else? Oh, and then the crew. Yeah, so the crew is going to have like special looks. They're basically like engineers, modified versions of the engineers or grenadiers or weapon teams. They're all kind of like in the same style, right? And then different poses. I think these might be all the poses. Yeah, so we kind of have like one that's cowering from the boom. We have one guy that's like bringing a barrel to reload. And then we have that's for the commander. Yeah, so the commander has like a sort of scope. So the idea is that like he's gonna point. This is currently in the work. Still don't even have enough to have like a work in progress shot. But yeah, very cool. Okay. All right, and then what do we have? Okay, the last thing that we have then for the concepts is whoops, it says Ratman concepts at the top. Anyway, the last one that we have for the concepts is the epic avatar of lust. This is an early concept. The concept is not fully finished, but basically, yeah, you're going to get. One of the concepts of the lust demons is that they have like all these tentacles, right? And so here the idea is that as they become, the basic warriors have just one tail, and then like the champions start having like multiple tails, and as you get the harbinger, it has more tails, ascended harbinger even more tails, and so as you get bigger, you get more tails, bigger model, crazier lady, and she actually also gets more arms. So this one actually has like, I think she has 6 arms, two of them with the special attachment. Yeah, huge model, and she's kind of like wrapped around this like piece of terrain. Yeah, she's gonna be absolutely epic. As always, the legendary models are absolutely epic. Okay, cool. All right, I think with that, we actually have finished our presentation, and we go into the Q&A. This was a lot of stuff, I gotta say, but not bad. An hour and 20 minutes in, pretty good compared to 5 hours. Okay, I'm going to. Okay, how are we gonna do this? I'm going to. I see that I have 5 questions here in the thing, the form that we gave before. I'm going to reply. I'm going to tell you what the questions are and reply to them. In the meantime, if you have any of your own questions, now is the time to post them, and I will take a look at them. I'm going to say the max amount of time I'm going to spend on Q&A is maybe 20 minutes. And then at the end, we can actually take a look at who won the poll and what 3D models we get to take a look at. Okay, so first questions. Oh my god, this one is a huge question. All right, let me try and parse this. I would like to ask if there is some game design reason why role modifiers are applied to the roles and not the base value. So, okay, as far, you're catching me a bit on the spot here. So the reason, there's basically like a game design reason. I don't have it off the top of my head right now, but basically it's like if you have the stat, if you have a value, if you have a modifier that modifies the stat and not the roll, it kind of, I think it kind of, there's ways to kind of use it as a loophole to break the game. And I think it also then breaks the whole, sixes are always successes and ones are always fails kind of thing. Because so what happens is, like, okay, imagine you have a, by the way, off the top of my head, I don't fully remember. This was, this has been 8 years of game design. But I think it's basically like, if you have, imagine you have a unit with quality 6 up, and then you have a rule that says you get -1 quality rather than -1 to your hit roll. Then what happens is you basically have a unit with quality 7 up, and we don't have rules for 7 up. And then it's not a roll, so then I think you can modify it further. Ah, fuck, I'm so sorry. I don't fully remember, but it's something about that. It kind of like, it kind of breaks the game and can have and can lead to loopholes. But in any case, yeah, if you find it confusing to do the modifier to roll, in your mind, you can always do it to the value. I don't think I've ever seen anyone that rolls all the dice and then looks at all the dice and then says, okay, I rolled a 2, oh, but this is a 1. I rolled a 3, oh, but this is a 2. No, it's just like, if you have a unit with defense 5 up and you have an AP1 weapon, then you just pretend that they have defense 6 up. That's kind of what you do. But yes, for a technicality reason, the modifiers to the roll and not to the stat. It would be nice to see some form of long-term road plan, maybe even for years. Oof, no. Sorry, that is yeah. We don't. I have a sort of 5-year, 10-year plan in my head, but it's very, very rough, and it's very, very it's still very vague, and who knows what's going to happen all those years. um production production decisions are made. Sure, we try to think kind of like long term ish, um but even if we do, that type of stuff can always change on a whim. And so I don't want to tell you today, like, hey, this is what's coming out in the next 5 years, and then after 6 months something changes in production, and now nothing makes sense, and then people are hanging on to that. Because we actually had a bit of a problem with that with some of the older armies, that, like, we had told people that the Star Host was supposed to come out, I think it was in April 2021. That's when it was supposed to start releasing, and we had promised everyone it was going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And then production issues came, and then basically we had like a year where we couldn't work on them, and people were constantly saying, oh, but like, you had promised. And I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying, like, I understand that they felt entitled to something that we promised them, um, and so we don't want to make that mistake again. Yeah. So generally speaking, right now the roadmaps are 3 months. Anything that we promise, quote unquote, is 3 months, because it's easier to navigate. Okay, question here. What's the status of translation? Oh, I actually already kind of answered this before. We're not currently working on translations. It's a huge project to do. It's a huge undertaking to do it properly. Once we have the manpower, the resources, the time, the money, the everything to do it, of course we will do it. But yeah, we're not there. Are any chance that the fan translation are going to be officially recognized? No, because we cannot verify them. If you come to me and you now have a translation in, I don't know, Polish, I don't have a way to verify that you're not, doing something completely incorrect, and telling people that the game is played one way but it's played another way. So without a way to verify, we can't endorse anything officially. Okay, will we see an army book or models for Fantasy Crusader Sisters? I don't know if you're referring to anything specific. As far as I know, we don't have any Crusader Sisters anywhere in the game. And if it's not in the game, it's unlikely to come out unless we announce it. So, no. What does the Saurians do in the settings? Do you have any plans on expanding the lore about them? Yes. So the lore, like I was saying before, the lore is going to be expanded. The lore is going to be it's currently all being rewritten and prepared for release. The Saurians, The Saurian story is a little bit complex in a sense, but basically, how do I go into detail without going into detail? Basically, the Saurians kind of were prophesized, um, let's say, to save the universe, so to say, and they kind of overslept. That's like the gist of it. They kind of overslept on their prophecy, and so their core story is a lot, and each Saurian's life is kind of like defined at birth, and like they're all like prophesized and predestined supposedly to have a certain life or do certain things and so on and so forth. And so the core of their story really is about like, well, in a sense, it's about like, what is destiny? Is there such a thing as destiny? What is determinism? Are things predetermined? Do we have control over our own lives? Um, and yeah, it's all about that. For each faction that we create and that we work on, we want to make sure that they are sort of grounded in a sort of, we're calling it a core tragedy, quote unquote. But basically, that they're all about some very real, um, human emotion, or human reaction, or whatever, something that you can really like empathize with and put yourself in the shoes of. We don't want to just create a faction that's like, here's these guys and they're the good guys and they fight because they fight for justice, and that's it. We want to create stories that are more compelling than that, more complex, deeper. Um, also some stories that we're telling are tough. They're difficult themes um, to tackle, and yeah, it can get serious. Um, so yeah, that's what I can say about the lore. When are we getting Grimdark Future Epic or Fantasy War Master? So, supposedly you were meant to get them 6 months ago, but that's not happening right now. So what is the status? Basically, yeah, like I was saying before, over the last year, the company has grown exponentially. We used to be a team of like 5, now we're a team of like 50. And I'm the creator and I'm the CEO and I'm the project manager. I'm basically at the helm of all of it. And I spent the last year, growing the company, growing the project, starting all these new things, whilst also committing to 3 armies per month and faster releases and bigger releases. And so I hadn't had a lot of time to focus on game design. I'm gonna be honest. And so basically that stuff has been put on hold. In the meantime, the 10 millimeter models are being produced. We have currently 99. We've currently finished the mummified undead modeling stage in 10 millimeters. Like 99% of it is done. Same for the robot legions. Those are the first 2 factions that we're making in 10 millimeters, and then we're also going to export them in 6 millimeters and 15 millimeters. So when you buy our small scale models, you get all 3 scales. Well, all 3 small scales, and the models are designed for this. But then after that, we're still going to need to test them and support them, and do all the renders and prepare them. And then one thing and so that whole thing is still happening. And in the meantime, I want to finally, get Age of Fantasy Quest out the door, and ideally, take that as a basis to immediately hand in hand finalize Grimdark Future Heroes. So I'm basically going to take those this time that I'm working on those, um, and I'm putting the other games on hiatus, or well on pause, to actually start developing 2 additional 10 millimeter factions. Right now, don't quote me on that, but right now the plan is Saurians, and originally was supposed to be Alien Hives, but because we're doing like a refresh of the list, that is being put on hold, and I think it's going to be Eternal Dynasty. And the idea is basically that for the first, so again, all of this is still in planning, and this is my idea right now, but the idea is that instead of killing ourselves trying to release more and more stuff on a monthly basis on Patreon, which has proved to be crazy, And also, like, I mean, it's $10. Like, how much stuff can we really give for $10 before we're essentially hurting ourselves? So these are going to be released by crowdfunding, and then we thought, well, I thought, like, if we're going to release, imagine the Mummified Undead today via crowdfunding, and then the Saurians come out in, I don't know, 6 months from now, um, I'm basically giving you models that you cannot play with for 6 months. Well, if we want to stay within the OPR sphere. So what we want to do is, for the first crowdfund, actually release the crowdfund with 2 armies. So ideally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish Quest and Heroes, and then I'm going to make the Epic and War Master, quote unquote. They're called General and Commander, which should be relatively fast because I already have the baseline for them, and they're relatively similar to in terms of how they function to the base game. So I'm really familiar with that stuff, so it's going to be very fast. It's not like like with Age of Fantasy Quest and Grimdark Future Heroes. I'm starting from zero, right? I'm making some completely new games, and that's a lot more work. But anyway, so the idea is that then hopefully mid next year, we will launch 2 crowdfunding campaigns, one for fantasy, one for sci-fi, and you're going to get 2 full armies with the rule book, with the games, with the army lists, with everything. Of course, we're going to try to make this at an incredible price. And yeah. So when are we getting them? Hopefully mid 2023. 1 year delay only. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so that was all the questions from the thing. Let me go to the questions on the chat. So, will the upcoming 2D PDFs have unit minis named? So, I'm pretty sure. So, question by Joe. I'm pretty sure I have already answered this question to you like 5 times on the Discord, but I am looking into it. It's not as simple as just in terms of organization. It might not be as simple as I think. I'm looking into it. If it's feasible, we will do it. If it's not, we won't. Are we going to get some skeleton undead for Age of Fantasy Quest? So, like I said, all factions are going to be part of the compendium. So, yes, in the sense that, well, the main base game is going to come with some generic units. Right now, I think it's swarms, beasts, fighters, shooters, heavies, and bosses. I think that's the 6 unit types. And so it's going to come with like generic ones, so you can use whatever models you want for them. But the idea is that then the compendium will have all of the armies. So if you have, because you're talking about undead, if you have mummified undead models, you're going to go to the mummified undead pages from the compendium, and you're going to be able to use all those models in the game, with cool stuff as well for them. Yeah. Okay, in Grimdark Futures, I feel units that are good at ranged and melee have a hard time getting value as they can only charge or shoot each activation. We can house rule shoot and charge, but what are your thoughts? So yes, hybrid units are not as efficient as non-hybrid units, of course. I don't know. I'm not as concerned about it as other players. I think that definitely they can be a little bit at a disadvantage, especially if they don't get charged. But usually they kind of make up for it in other ways. I have looked into ways to feasibly recost them in a fair way. Yeah, so far, not really anything there that works. For me, of course, you can house rule that you can shoot and charge in the same turn, but it will also drastically change how those units feel and function in the game. So, house rule at your own peril, as always. All right, going back to the Lore King. Does the series sector have a standardized currency, or does each faction just use their own? Kind of both. Kind of all. There is yeah, so the factions have again, we haven't gone into all of the faction books and all that stuff. But yeah, the factions are going to have essentially like their own currencies and stuff like that. But then also like there is like this inner sphere kind of like currency, and kind of like this universal like credit currency that they can use. So I guess you can kind of use both. Yeah. Um, mm, 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 okay. Are there cosmopolitan cities with different races in AOF or Grimdark Future? Yes. So in Grimdark Future, there is so the Grimdark Future universe is basically structured into what we're calling spheres. So in there basically there's like an inner sphere of the universe, um, of the galaxy, which essentially is like a big mix of all sort of like species. And so that's kind of like the cosmopolitan area, and that's kind of like you can imagine it sort of like, I guess, sort of like Star Wars kind of situation, where like yeah, everybody's kind of like it's not really anymore about like species and factions. It's not yeah, it's more about like factions, not about species. It's not like each species is its own separate thing. They're all just like a big mix. And then you have the outer sphere, which is actually where the Sirius sector is, which is more like your typical war game setting. So like species and factions are kind of like more analogous, and they're kind of like more having their own thing. And then outside of that, you have the frontier, which is sort of like a, your full-on adventure setting where like anything goes and you go explore. And in Age of Fantasy, you have a kind of a similar thing where so every like I said, like there's different planes in Age of Fantasy, and there's actually a lot of the void gates throughout the different planes all lead back to one place, one plane, which is kind of called the common plane. And so the common plane has like a huge, just enormous sort of like fantasy cyberpunk city almost. I don't know, I don't know what to call it, but it's this enormous city called the Planar City, and the Planar City is kind of like where everybody, again, same thing, like everybody's mixed. There's not really factions. Everybody's kind of like doing their thing, and then the way. Okay, it's tough to explain a lot of lore without giving you the full lore background, but in the lore of Age of Fantasy, basically in Tyria, humans used to have this sort of like empire that spanned most of Tyria, and then it fell and whatever. And so whilst during this time where this whole empire was formed, everybody was kind of like mixing together. So even though now it's fallen, there are still parts there where there's like a big mix of everyone. So yeah, but you have the freedom to kind of also do your own thing in this setting. That's one of the powerful things about how we're setting up the setting, or the universe or whatever. In that, if you just want to kind of like, if you want to say, hey, look, I'm playing Age of Fantasy, and I want to have a cool adventure set in a planet, well, not a planet, a plane, which is like a whole city. You can just invent a plane and just make it up and say like, okay, this plane is just an entire city. This entire plane is just a city, and then do your thing. Yeah. Is there still a community interest poll planned for early 2023? Community poll comes out in December, so next month. Have you thought about reversing the wound effect resolution to align with sixes being better than ones? No, no. I know that for a lot of people coming, especially from like 40k and Age of Sigma or whatever, they kind of have this concept of like units have wounds, and then like they take markers and they decrease in wounds until then they have no wounds left and then they die. But throughout, especially like in the early years of OPR, when I was doing a ton of playtesting with like new players and stuff like that, one thing that I found that consistently was a point of confusion was this whole notion of like units have wounds, but then their wounds is actually like their life counter. It's actually like their HP, and then they take wounds. But when you take wounds, you remove wounds, and it was very confusing. So in OPR, it's quite simple. It's just like you take wounds, you add wounds. A wound is add, right? You keep getting more wounded. You don't lose wounds, if that makes sense. So yeah, no, there's no plans to reverse or align how the thing. Dumb questions, but will we get the dwarves back? Okay. I suppose you're referring to the fantasy dwarf miniatures that we used to have. Those are not coming back. Those Different time, different quality, different method of making miniatures. We're not satisfied with those anymore, so they have been removed. That being said, at some point in the future, yes, we will be making fantasy dwarves again, but expect them to look very different. We have some ideas of how our dwarves are going to look like in our games, and we don't really want to go for that very classic Tolkien or Norse mythology or whatever vibe. We kind of want to do our own thing. If you pay attention to like the original OPR armies, or well, to all the armies that OPR is making models for, except for maybe some of the earlier armies we made, like the Mummified and then the Saurians. But anyway, we are actually trying to make sure that all of our armies look and feel different from other settings. Sure, the armies can still be used as proxies for other games, but our goal is to make sure that one day when all of the armies are out and all of the art is out and all the lore is out, if you come into it not knowing about other games and universes and whatever, it's full on standalone thing that stands on its own 2 feet and it has its own vibe and aesthetic and so on and so forth, and we're really pushing for that. And I know that that's a point of contention for some people, because some people say like, hey, I just came here to proxy, or I just came here to to buy knockoff miniatures or something like that. But we don't want to do that. We don't want to. Our goal is not to be a knockoff company. Our goal is to make our own thing, and then sure, make it compatible with other miniatures, maybe, or other games, but not make it based off of that. Okay, somebody asked the question, steampunk. I don't know what the question is, but steampunk. Okay. Have you considered something like a keyword for certain elite units, like destroyers, that would allow them to first shoot at -1 to hit before making a charge? No, I have not. I have considered a keyword or some other feature where we could mark a weapon as being able to be used both in shooting and melee. I have considered it. Torn about it. I know that, especially once people coming from other games, whatever, they want a lot of complexity. But don't forget, one page rules is about keeping things simple, and part of keeping things simple is also keeping things consistent. Every time we add a rule that is an exception to the rules, it just makes things more and more complex, and it kind of like erodes, player. It's kind of like an attrition to player retention. Every single time that you add a little thing that complicates things, you're losing someone. And our goal is not to lose people, right? Our goal is to make very accessible games. We want to make, ideally, some of the most accessible games out there, in the wargaming space, at least. And So yeah, it's unlikely that we're going to make things more complex. You should ask, are we planning to make things simpler? That's more likely to be answered with a yes. Okay, then somebody asked Magipunk. Not sure what the question is. Magipunk. The Ratmen build their own castles or occupied abandoned ones? No, they built their own castles. They found their own. They basically. So the Ratmen basically kind of like accidentally were spawned by like human like dumping magic stuffs. Let me put it that way. And then they kind of like the Ratmen kind of like came out of that as sort of like abominations. And then humans were like, oh my god, you like you're gross, you're huge rats, and they kind of like kicked them out. And then they basically wandered from faction to faction to kind of like find a new home, and everybody was like, hey, we don't want you. And then there was basically, they kind of found this piece of land, so to say, or this area which wasn't really settled, and so they were like, hey, let's go. And rats, fast reproduction, so on and so forth. So they were able to very quickly like grow in numbers and build castles and whatever, and start building a society. And then, well, it turns out there was a reason why that whole area was kind of empty. It's because it's in the middle of a bunch of factions, and that's where they were constantly warring. That was kind of like a huge battlefield area, so to say. And so, yeah, they started building their cities into castles because they were constantly being attacked from all sides. That's kind of like part of the role. You shared some concept art from the OPR dwarves on Discord, or was it just a sketch in which direction you want them? If you're talking about space dwarves, like sci-fi dwarves, possible. We have some concept art for them. Fantasy, we don't. If anything, I probably might have shown like just some random screenshots of stuff I found online that I thought was a cool vibe. But yeah. Have you received copyright infringement letters from they who shall not be named? No. What inspired the decision to make the gameplay shoot or melee instead of shoot and melee? Uh, Keep things simple. I just wanted to make it simple. Like if you charge, melee. If you advance, you shoot. Keeping things simple. Any more race-related rules that make the factions play different, like the slow rule for lords that gives an okay, this is gonna be the last question and answer because we're almost out of time. So yes, I would like to. I think right now the factions are pretty good in terms of like flavor for what they are now. I think that it would be cool to do like a sort of review of all the armies when I have some time and kind of see like, okay, which armies could use a little bit more flavor. But don't forget, again, OPR is about keeping things simple. So a lot of what people say, like, oh, like OPR armies don't have as much flavor as another game. It's like a lot of times it's not that the other games have more flavor. They just have a lot of bloat. Like to add flavor, quote unquote, flavor to the army, they just add more and more rules and more bloat. And it's like we could do that. We can make a bloated game with a ton of faction rules and faction special rules and complicated things and so on and so forth, or we don't, or we don't make it bloated and we keep it simple and we keep doing what makes us successful and what gets people to actually play the game. One of the crazy things is like a lot of people ask for the game to keep getting more complex, but it's like the one of the reasons why OPR is successful is because complex games people talk about but people don't play. They spend hours discussing them and making videos and podcasts and whatever, and they talk about them, but they don't actually get down to play because it's so complex. It takes so much time. It's so and OPR, yes, it's simpler, and therefore you can get together with your friends and in an evening where you would have played maybe one match, you can play two matches, three matches. If you're really into your armies, into the rules, into the things, you can go fast. Like I've played matches of Grimdark Future Firefight that were like 15 minutes, and we just started playing back to back to back, and it was really cool because then you could just play a campaign in like an evening. Um, so I know people want more, but don't forget, more sometimes is less. I think. Okay, cool. All right, peeps. We're almost out of time. It is time to end the poll and take a look at what won. So, which 3D models do you want to see at the end of the stream? Oh, interesting. It seems like most people voted for Grenadiers and Engineer. Okay, I'm curious. It seems like literally people voted all of the things, all of the choices in exactly the order that I had put them. And now I'm wondering, does the order somehow influence where people are? Whatever. Anyway, guys, we made it to the end. Grenadiers and Engineers won. So I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm going to show you the models. All right. Okay. We said Grenadiers and Engineer. Okay, Grenadiers. So I need you to bear with me. This is essentially the first time I am. Let me see. This is the first time that I am doing this on this new computer, and I'm not 100% sure if the hell. Okay, I'm not 100% sure if it's not going to slow down or whatever. I remember that when we did it last time, the stream was super slow. So, okay, I'm going to be sharing models. I'm going to just keep dropping models in here for you to see. I need you to please tell me. So I'm going to keep moving the model around 360 style for a second. And I need you to tell me if it's all blurry and screwed, or if you can actually see it as I turn it, or if I need to stop the model in order for you to see something not blurred. But as far as I know, it should not be blurry anymore. You should be able to see the model even as I turn it. I can see it perfect, smooth. Can see it fine. Amazing. All right, guys. So let's take a quick look. So these are the Grenadiers. Very cool models, I gotta say. Came out great. So you can see lots of details. They all have like these grenade throwing poses. They have grenades strapped to them. All of the grenades have like um, these sort of I don't know what to call them. These sort of cloth things hanging that make them really cool. Because they're engineers, they also have like a lot of little tools. They have like a little backup sword to fight. Um, they have these cool little helmets. Let me keep popping in new Actually, let me see if I can pop in 5 poses at once. Maybe I can just do that and then let me take a look at like that. Uh, can you change the model color easily so it stands out more? Um, unfortunately, not really. I mean, I can change the color, but in my experience, it does not get. Um, it gets harder to see because of this crappy program. Maybe I need to get a better software to do this. Maybe an orange color. No, unfortunately not. If somebody's well versed in this software, a Microsoft 3D Builder, let me know. Okay, I'm just trying to set them all up so I can tilt them, and you can take a look at them. All right. Boom. Okay, cool. So the poses. So wait, why is it? God, it's selecting them wrong. Okay. So all right, we have a sort of like crazy grenadier pose, holding 2 grenades. More grenades around the chest, going kind of cray. Uh, and then also a grenade around the tail. Very cool pose. Lots of grenades. Then we have a sort of classic. I think this was like a World War II. You know those plastic, those Green Army Men minis were kind of like inspiration for some of these poses. So here we have like a sort of grenadier grenade lobbing pose. Very cool. This is actually a female model. You can see the difference in like the face shape, and she also has like earrings. Then we have another sort of like prepping for a throw pose. This guy looks a little bit more cautious. Yeah, very cool. The way the tail turns, the way the grenades kind of like, swoosh around. Very cool model. Then we have a kneeling pose. We generally try to avoid kneeling poses unless they look really cool. Um, I thought this looked really badass. Uh, Sort of like it almost looks like it's trying to throw it around a corner or over a trench or yeah, something like that. I thought it was a very cool pose. This dude actually has a double sword, so extra dangerous when fighting. And then finally we have um, finally we have one with like a rock, tactical rock pose. This pose is actually kind of holding with both hands. It's kind of again kind of inspired, I suppose, by the classic pulling the pin and throwing the grenade. And he actually has a grenade around his tail, so that also looks very cool. One small details to let you know. One small thing that we try to do is also make things themed where we can. So the rock is not just a random rock. We actually try to make it look a little bit like a castle wall brick, to kind of be in theme. Okay, and then we have but then here comes the cool one. So, like I told you before, the Grenadiers come with a special carrier that has stuff to put toxin in the grenades. So here is oops. So instead of just 5 models, you're going to get 6 models here, and here he is. So this guy is the toxin tool. I don't remember the exact name. The toxin carrier. So you can see he has like toxin vials around his chest, and in the back you can see he has a backpack. And if we turn around to see it, so the way that this functions is basically that like you put the grenades in. So on the sides you have like 2 holes, and you sort of like stuff the grenades in there. And then at the top you're kind of like put in these vials with poison, and they sort of like soak the grenades with poison. And then in the back, the grenades kind of like whoop, they roll out, and yeah, they roll out, and then you grab them, and then you start throwing poison grenades. So yeah, we thought this was this was not originally planned, I think, and then we kind of like came up with it, and yeah, it was too cool to let go, and it was a nice little detail to add a little bit of story to the thing. Of course, if you don't like the little buddy, you can always print it without the little buddy as well, and just have like a guy carrying the thing. Um, okay, so that was the Grenadiers, and now let's take a look at the Engineer, and then we're basically done. So, Engineer. So we have two versions of the Engineer. I'm going to show you. Well, let's take a look at them. I don't know which one is first. Okay, cool. So this one we hadn't seen yet. So this is the one with the gun. So she is, yeah, she's a gun-toting engineer. Um, yeah. Sorry, I got distracted. Yeah, she has a cool headgear with this sort of like goggle things. Lots of earrings as always for the female models. Cool details. On the armor. Also, like lots of little like tools and gadgets, and little like oil vials and stuff like that. She comes, yeah, and in the back also like more details and like a nice little pouch. She comes with a sort of like wrench tool. That she can use, I suppose, to like repair stuff. I think she can get the repair rule in the game. Yeah, and so she can kind of like repair stuff or boost vehicles. And always little details. There's like the faction symbol there as well, and then she also comes with a toxin gun. So actually, I think this is the first gun that we're. Well, no, I think we saw the MG and stuff. Anyway, yeah, so this is sort of like it's sort of hybrid. It's not meant to be a sniper rifle. It's not meant to be a pistol. It's kind of this hybrid thing. And yeah, it has like if you look closely, you can see right here that it has like this sort of like um, pump, not pump, this sort of like a receptacle where like you put toxin, and then it sort of like pumps into it feeds into the gun, and then like when you fire it, you can basically fire poison shots. I think it's a pretty cool gun. I think it's like 18 inches, 18 inches, A2 poison, maybe A1. Not 100% sure. Maybe A1. But yeah, it's a nice little like poison gun. Okay, so that's the gun version of the engineer, and then we have lastly the drill version of the engineer. So there you go. So the driller version of the engineer. So the basic body is the same, right? So the same sort of armor and the goggles. This one is male. The armor, the goggles, and whatnot, tools. But yes, this guy comes with like this massive drill. The design is similar to the one from the attack drill that we have in the weapon teams, but this one is actually meant to make like bigger tunnels for the rats to like use as an ambush route. So he has like a massive drill, and then it's powered by this. It powers into this. It's powered by this sort of like backpack thing, and it has like a cool flame on top. So another cool like painting opportunity. And actually, like it's modular. So if you want, you can just not put the flame there. Like you don't print the flame and you don't put it there. If you struggle with that type of stuff, don't do it, and you don't have to worry about it. And yeah, again, like trying to make things consistent, so the rocks look kind of like bricks. Yeah, cool model, very cool model. Very happy with how the rats are turning out. Yeah, very happy with how everything is turning out, really. Very cool to see everything, the whole vision come together like this. Okay, all right, everyone. So I think this is about it. The stream has gone tiny bit over 2 hours, 2 hours and 4 minutes, which is pretty good. We do aim, or I do aim to have these streams at around, 1.5 hours, 2 hours. That's sort of like where I would like to keep it. I'm going to disconnect now. Please, if you can, in the comments, or ideally maybe go on Discord and we can have like a little chat. Let me know what you think about this new format. Do you like the format? Do you like the way that it's like organized? Do you like the slides? Uh, you know, um, uh, what about the poll? Do you like the idea of the little poll? I thought it was funny, but who knows? What about showing the 3D models at the end? Again, let me know what you think. Testing out new things. Let me know if there are any technical difficulties, if any issues with the audio or with the video or with the slides or with the models or whatever. Let me know. Let me know. Yeah, I'm gonna hop off now. I will see you for the next stream at the end of December. So usually the streams are meant to be on the last Thursday of the month. That would be the 29th of December. Not bad. Actually, 29th of December might be pretty good. Pretty good moment to do the stream. Yeah, not 100% sure. We might. It depends, Christmas, New Year's, stuff like that. I might slightly delay it or make it a bit earlier or something like that. But whatever, I will let you know. Thank you everyone for joining. Yeah, I will see you. I will see you back on Discord. Yeah, have a nice evening. Bye bye.